Joining us now is Leo Nouhan. He's a board member and the conference coordinator of Kevin Song's 6th annual conference on suicide, joining us on the MegaCast. Leo, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Appreciate having you on. So, of course, Kevin Song is your organization, having your 6th annual conference coming up soon, your 6th annual conference on suicide. Let's start off by talking about Kevin Song, about the organization and the origins for it, and about the person that was the inspiration behind the organization, Kevin Urso, as well.
Sure. Kevin Urso was the son of John and Gail Urso, and Kevin took his life in 2013. The following year, John and Gail decided that in honor of their son, they wanted to form an organization that could focus on suicide prevention. They didn't realize how serious suicide was in terms of being one of the leading causes of death for young people and working-aged men and so on. And so they created Kevin Song. And over the last 7 years, Kevin Song has grown to be one of the premier suicide prevention organizations, nonprofits in the state of Michigan. We have prided ourselves in networking with other coalitions and other nonprofits throughout the state, as well as with the state of Michigan, to combat suicide and to work together to engage in meaningful prevention efforts.
And so
through our yeah.
And so your upcoming conference, it's the 6th annual conference. It'll be coming up very soon here. It's on January 27th through the 29th, which will be next week. It is the largest conference on suicide to expand conversation and provide solutions on systemic inequality in suicide prevention. So what will be some of the topics that will be discussed there? Obviously, there's a lot that goes into discussions on suicide preventions and action on suicide prevention to help our communities prevent these kinds of tragedies from happening all across the board. So what will be some of the topics of conversation and some of the seminars that people may be able to attend and learn from at this conference?
Well, the conference is a virtual conference, so it's an online conference that's live. And we have keynote speakers and breakout sessions over 2 days. And then on Saturday, we have a live streamed Facebook presentation where we'll have a series of people kind of sharing their own experience with suicide loss and surviving suicide, and a panel of individuals that will share their stories. So the gist of it is, Tyler, that we are focusing on equality and equity and suicide prevention. Most recently, in December of last year, the Surgeon General came out with a report, and basically, while in general the suicide rate has not dramatically increased throughout the term of the pandemic, it has increased in certain communities. And it seems like certain communities that were already disadvantaged, whether by racial situations, economic situations, cultural situations, those communities that were already disadvantaged suffered additional increases in suicide through the course of the pandemic. So we wanted to focus on those communities. So we have, for example, Ellen Kahn from the Human Rights Campaign. She's going to address the impact of suicide on gay and lesbian LGBT youth. It's a serious issue because those students, those young people that struggle with issues of sexual identity and sexual orientation often find themselves in a mental health crisis. And it's important that clinicians and teachers and parents understand what is going on with those youth and how they can intervene to prevent self-harm. We also are focusing on the effect of suicide in the African American community. We've got a couple of excellent speakers from the Crisis Text Line that are going to focus on how the African American community grapples with suicide, because it's a little different than other communities deal with those issues. We have some great discussions on Friday about the whole impact of suicide and depression and mental health problems among working aged men and veterans, because they are probably the most seriously hit groups for suicide. And so that's just a sampling, along with the survivor stories on Saturday. We like to appeal to a broad cross section. The Thursday program appeals to people that deal with youth, so educators, clinicians. On Friday, we have a more general program, and our keynote speaker on Friday, Craig Bryant, is a well-known suicidologist and has just written a book about rethinking suicide prevention, because for so long we focused on suicide as the result of mental illness, and Craig is challenging us to look at other reasons that might be responsible for an increase in suicide.
And we're joined by Leo Nouhan from Kevin's Song, an organization that will be holding their sixth annual conference on suicide prevention coming up in late January. That's January 27th through January 29th. It is a virtual conference as well. And so, Leo, you're an attorney. How has your work ultimately brought you to be working with Kevin's Song and joining this organization and helping to not only inform the public about some of the risk factors for suicide and some of the prevention measures that can be taken across the board to prevent these tragedies, but also to work to help this organization prevent these further tragedies in the future?
Well, I happen to be a friend of John and Gail Urso, so early on after Kevin took his life and they formed Kevin's Song, John and Gail approached me to see whether or not I would be interested in helping them organize and manage a conference. And so I am basically a healthcare attorney. I worked in-house for Blue Cross and Blue Shield for many years, and have kind of focused my practice on issues involving health and mental health, and have represented a number of individuals that have been denied mental health services or whose services were abruptly terminated because of certain conditions in insurance plans. And so access to mental health care is a very personal issue with me, because I've dealt with it professionally, and I know the effects of the inability to access quality and professional mental health services. So that's really what drives me to work with Kevin's Song and to try to change attitudes culturally about the need for mental health services, and to try to erase the stigma that attaches not only to mental health problems, but also to suicide in particular.
And you mentioned earlier that some of the discussions that will be had in the seminars and the breakout sessions, in the general sessions as well at the 6th annual conference from Kevin's Song will be about the disparities in prevention advocacy in communities, as well as in prevention tactics across the board as well. For those that may not be familiar or may not be aware of some of those disparities or some of those some of the areas where our prevention tactics and our prevention advocacy across the board is lacking, what are some of those common mistakes that are being made, or those common errors that are out there that Kevin's Song is trying to bring awareness to, so that we can make proper corrections and provide the mental health care and provide the advocacy and provide the support to those that may be suffering from suicidal tendencies or from mental health issues, to prevent suicides across the board, especially in those communities where they're being more affected and they're not necessarily getting the same amount of care as certain other communities are on this front?
Well, I think what it really boils down to is that in the past, I think that suicide prevention efforts that are evidence-based have been used pretty consistently across all demographic areas with varying degrees of success. And I think that the recent kind of understanding culturally and from society standpoint that we have come to in being aware of the differences among us, that we all have different triggers. There are different cultural environments and situations that contribute to our individual grappling with mental health issues. And so what we're trying to communicate and educate the suicide prevention community is that you may not be able to just apply the same rules and practices across the board to every affected community, that you need to model those efforts to take into consideration the individual needs that vary from community to community. And so to understand better what LGBT youth are struggling with, what are some of the issues that they're addressing, might affect the way that you approach those youth with trying to intervene when there's a crisis. The same thing with, let's say, the African American community. What are the unique qualities of that community that will help you better reach out to people that are in crisis? And that's really what it's all about. It's all about intervention and preventing that crisis from developing into something deadly. And if we can understand the person and understand where they're coming from and what their makeup is, then we can tailor our prevention efforts to really help people where they're at. And that's really the important focus of our conference. Whether it's an LGBT youth, whether it's an African American, a Hispanic, whether it is a veteran, a working age white male, each of those demographics has unique characters and unique qualities that may influence how you approach them when it comes to prevention and risk assessment.
And then, Leo, just another couple minutes with you. If people want to participate in the conference, in the 6th annual conference on January 27th through 29th virtually, or they want to help the organization in any other way, whether it be volunteerism, whether it be financially, whatever way that they can help, we're going to get more information if they want to participate.
Well, our website is the best place to go. We have a Facebook page, I believe an Instagram page as well, but our website is kevinsong.org, and you can register for the conference there. There are also scholarships available if somebody would love to attend the conference, but the cost, even though it's pretty reasonable, if the cost is prohibitive in any way, we have resources available to accommodate those folks. So if anyone in your audience would like to attend that conference, and they have, they can go to our website and register. They can watch the survivors tell their stories and share their experiences with Hope and Healing on Saturday. They can watch that live on Facebook. So we welcome anybody that would like to register, whether it's via a paid registration or a complimentary registration for those who can't afford it.
To learn more information, you can go to kevinsong.org/conference, and you can also visit their website for links to their Facebook page as well.
Absolutely.
Leo, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.